I never expected my 26th birthday dinner would change my life forever. We were at this restaurant he picked. Not even my favorite place, but whatever. I was just happy he remembered my birthday this year. My best friends Rebecca and Eliana joined us too. Everything seemed normal at first. Drinks, appetizers, the usual birthday stuff. But Harrison kept disappearing to the bathroom every 15 minutes. During one of his absences, Rebecca got this look on her face while scrolling through her phone. She showed Eliana something and they both froze. I asked what was wrong and they tried to play it off. "It's nothing," Rebecca said, quickly putting her phone away. "Just some stupid drama on social media." Harrison came back to the table, smiling. He kissed me on the cheek, asked why everyone looked so serious. I said we were just deciding what dessert to get. He laughed, told me to get whatever I wanted because it's your special day, babe. Throughout dinner, Harrison kept putting his arm around me, taking selfies for his Instagram where he called me birthday girl and my world with heart emojis. On the drive back to his apartment, I kept thinking about Rebecca's reaction, about the way Harrison had been acting lately, distant, always on his phone, canceling plans last minute. Harrison's dad had lost his job last year and they were struggling. My dad owns a distribution company and gave Harrison a job, pays him way more than he's worth because he thought Harrison made me happy. My dad even helped Harrison make rent when he was short, for almost a year now. When we got back to his apartment, he told me he had a special birthday surprise for me. I said I was tired. He got annoyed, said he'd gone to all this effort for my birthday and I was being ungrateful. I waited until Harrison fell asleep. Then I texted Rebecca, "Show me what you saw." 3 dots appeared immediately. She was typing, then stopping, then typing again. Finally, "Are you sure? It's bad. Just show me." The link came through seconds later. I clicked it with shaking hands and there it was. Harrison's secret TikTok account. The account he claimed he didn't have because TikTok is stupid and for kids. It had a whole series called Rating My Girlfriend's Friends with 6 videos. The latest one had my face in the thumbnail with a big red X over it. I pressed play, heart pounding in my ears. Harrison's voice came through clear as day. "And finally, this is my girlfriend. Yes, I'm suffering. She's fat, ugly, and delusional. I'm only with her because her dad pays my bills. Look at this creature." The video was from our beach trip last month. I'd been so self-conscious about wearing a bikini and Harrison had told me I looked beautiful. He'd taken pictures of me smiling, telling me how proud he was of me for facing my fears. And then he'd use those exact pictures to humiliate me online. The comments were worse. His friends all laughing. Someone wrote, "Bro, leave that whale," and Harrison had hearted it. There were hundreds of comments like that, and he'd replied to them all agreeing and laughing. The video had 47K views. 47,000 people had seen him mock me. I looked over at Harrison sleeping peacefully beside me. This man who had just hours ago told me he loved me, who had spent the last 3 years of my life making me believe he cared, who had taken my family's generosity and repaid it by humiliating me online for clout. I went through his phone while he slept, found all the messages with his friends laughing about me, found the dating apps he was using. Harrison lives in an apartment my dad owns, drives a car my dad helped him buy, has a job only because of my dad. And all this time he's been making videos about how ugly I am and how he's just using me for money. The irony is, I'm the one who convinced my dad to help him in the first place. I could have woken him up right then, could have screamed and cried and thrown his phone at his lying face, but something stopped me. I realized that if I confronted him now, he'd just deny it or say it was a joke or blame me for overreacting, and nothing would really happen to him. He might lose me, but honestly, the videos made it clear he didn't even want me. The only thing he'd lose is my dad's money. The next morning, I made him breakfast like nothing was wrong. I kissed him goodbye when he left for work. Then I called Rebecca and Eliana. I told them I had seen everything, and I told them I wasn't going to just cry about it. I wasn't going to just break up with him. I wasn't going to just expose him. No, what Harrison had done to me deserved something much more creative. I decided I needed a plan. Not just any plan, but something that would make him regret every word he ever said about me. Update. I spent the next 3 days researching everything about Harrison's social media. Turns out, rating my girlfriend's friends was just the tip of the iceberg. He had accounts everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all under different names, but all clearly him. In each one, he complained about being stuck with me, posted side-by-side comparisons of me versus hot girls, and basically documented how he was using me and my family for money. Rebecca and Eliana came over and helped me document everything. We downloaded all the videos, took screenshots of all the comments. There was a whole group chat with his friends where they made fun of me, my weight, even the way I talked. They had a running joke about how Harrison was taking one for the team by dating me because my dad was his meal ticket. My dad has always been overprotective. Single dad, only daughter. When I started dating Harrison, Dad was skeptical but warmed up when he saw how happy Harrison made me. When Harrison's family fell on hard times, I was the one who convinced my dad to help him out. My dad trusted my judgment, and I had vouched for this piece of shit who was laughing at us behind our backs. I called my dad and asked him to meet for lunch, just the 2 of us. We met at his favorite steakhouse, and I could tell he knew something was wrong. I'd planned to ease into it, But the moment I saw my dad's face, the way he looked at me with so much love and concern, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I showed him everything. The videos, the comments, the messages. I watched my dad's expression change from confusion to shock, to a cold, hard anger I'd never seen before. He didn't say anything for a long time, just scrolled through screenshot after screenshot, video after video. Finally, he put down his phone and looked at me, asked if I was okay. I told him the truth, that I wasn't, but I would be. That I wasn't going to let Harrison get away with this. Dad nodded slowly and said something that shocked me. Do whatever you need to do. I've got your back. See, my dad isn't just some rich guy. He built his business from nothing, survived 3 recessions, dealt with competitors trying to bankrupt him. He's the kind of man who knows how to handle people who cross him, and Harrison had crossed both of us. We made a plan, a real plan, something that would make Harrison regret ever thinking he could use us. First step was simple. Dad would transfer Harrison to the warehouse across town. Longer hours, harder work, less pay. When Harrison asked why, Dad just said there were budget cuts at the main office. Nothing personal, just business. Second step, the apartment. Technically, Harrison had signed a lease with my dad's property management company. I went through it with Dad's lawyer. Turns out Harrison had violated multiple terms. Unauthorized subletting, he'd been renting the second bedroom to his friend Vincent without telling us, property damage, holes in the walls he'd covered up with posters, even keeping a pet snake when the lease specifically said no pets. But we didn't evict him, not yet. That would be too obvious. Instead, the property management company sent notice that they were doing routine maintenance on all units. They'd need access every day for the next 2 weeks, sometimes with very little notice. Harrison hated having people in his space. I knew this would drive him crazy. Third step, my dad called in the car loan. Harrison had missed 2 payments, something he'd hidden from me, which meant the bank could demand immediate payment in full. Harrison didn't have that kind of money. He'd have to beg my dad for help, which of course my dad wouldn't give. All of this happened within the first week after my birthday. Harrison had no idea I knew anything. I kept acting completely normal. Loving girlfriend, supportive partner, all while watching his life slowly start to unravel. He complained about the job transfer, told me he didn't understand why my dad was doing this to him. I looked him right in the eyes and said maybe Dad was just trying to help him develop new skills. Maybe this was a good opportunity to prove himself. Harrison nodded like this made sense. Like my dad was still looking out for him. He complained about the maintenance people, said they were coming at inconvenient times, going through his things. I suggested maybe he should clean up a bit. Maybe get rid of that snake that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. His face. When I mentioned the snake, priceless. He had no idea I knew about it. He complained about the car loan, said the bank was being unreasonable, asked if I could talk to my dad about helping him out. I said I'd think about it, then deliberately changed the subject, left him hanging. Rebecca and Eliana checked in every day. They were worried I might break and confront him. But honestly, watching Harrison slowly realize his perfect setup was falling apart was way more satisfying than any screaming match could have been. By the end of the second week, Harrison was a mess, exhausted from the warehouse work, stressed about the apartment inspections, panicking about the car loan. He started being short with me, snapping over little things, but then catching himself, remembering he needed to keep me happy, keep me believing he loved me. That's when we moved to phase 2. I accidentally left my laptop open one day when Harrison came over. On the screen was an email from my dad about revising his will. The email mentioned something about putting me in charge of the family business someday, about a trust fund that would activate when I turned 30. None of this was true. My dad and I had created the fake email together, but Harrison didn't know that. That night, Harrison was suddenly super attentive, made dinner, massaged my shoulders, told me how proud he was of me and how he always knew I'd take over the family business someday. I smiled and thanked him, all while imagining what was going through his greedy little mind. The next day, I told Harrison I was thinking about moving in together, said I wanted us to get a place of our own, without my dad's help. Somewhere we could really start our life together. Harrison looked panicked, started making excuses about how now wasn't a good time, with his job change and financial situation. I pushed a little, acting hurt, asking if he didn't want a future with me. He backpedaled hard, said of course he wanted a future with me, said moving in together would be amazing, then suggested maybe we could use one of my dad's properties instead of finding a new place. Maybe that bigger luxury apartment downtown that Dad had just renovated? I said I'd think about it, watched him relax, thinking he'd dodged a bullet. What Harrison didn't know was that I'd already moved most of my stuff out of his apartment, all the things I'd left there over the years, clothes, makeup, books, even the special coffee machine I'd bought him for Christmas, that he never used because he actually hated coffee. Rebecca and Eliana had helped me pack it all up during the day while he was at work. I was also documenting everything, taking videos when he wasn't looking, recording our conversations, making notes of every time he lied to my face, every time he pretended to love me while I knew he was mocking me to his friends. The warehouse transfer had another purpose too. It separated Harrison from his work friends, the ones who commented on his videos, the ones who knew the truth. I asked my dad to keep an eye on him, and he reported back that Harrison was isolated at the warehouse. Nobody wanted to be friends with the boss's daughter's boyfriend. They all thought he was a spy for corporate. Harrison's car situation got worse. Without help from my dad, and with his reduced salary, he couldn't make the payments. The bank sent a final notice. Harrison was desperate enough that he tried to go directly to my dad, bypassing me. Showed up at his office unannounced. My dad played it perfectly. Listened to Harrison's story about financial hardship, about how much he loved me and wanted to build a future with me, about how embarrassed he was to ask for help again. Dad nodded sympathetically, then said something amazing. If you truly love my daughter and want a future with her, prove it. Propose to her. Make a commitment. Then we'll talk about financial help. Harrison came to me that night practically bouncing with excitement. Told me he'd had a great talk with my dad. That dad had given him some man-to-man advice about our relationship. I asked what kind of advice, and Harrison said he didn't want to spoil the surprise. Then he asked what kind of rings I liked, if I preferred traditional or modern styles. I played along, pretending to be excited, showing him pictures of rings I liked. The next day, Harrison asked if we could have dinner at the same restaurant where we'd celebrated my birthday. Said he wanted to make up for being distracted that night. I agreed, secretly knowing exactly what he was planning. I called Rebecca and Eliana, told them Phase 3 was happening sooner than we expected. Harrison was going to propose, not because he loved me, but because he thought it would solve his financial problems. They were furious on my behalf, but I assured them I had it all under control. The day of the proposal dinner, I spent hours getting ready, did my hair and makeup perfectly, wore the dress Harrison had once said made me look almost as hot as Eliana in one of his videos, made sure I looked flawless. Harrison picked me up, complimented me nervously, kept touching the pocket of his jacket where I assumed the ring was hidden. He'd been weirdly insistent about driving, even though his car was at risk of being repossessed any day. Now I understood why. He wanted to create the perfect proposal moment. At the restaurant, Harrison was sweating, kept checking his phone, seemed distracted. I asked if everything was okay, and he said everything was perfect. Ordered champagne, started talking about how we met, our first date, all these memories that he claimed to cherish. The whole time I was thinking about those videos, about him calling me fat and ugly and a creature, about him telling the world he was suffering by being with me, about all the comments from his friends that he'd laughed at and encouraged. Just as the dessert arrived, Harrison got down on one knee, pulled out a small box, started saying how much he loved me, how he couldn't imagine his life without me, how he wanted us to be together forever. I looked at his earnest face, at the cheap ring he'd probably put on credit because he was broke, at the people around us starting to notice and smile, thinking they were witnessing a beautiful moment. And then I said exactly what I'd been planning to say all along. No. Harrison's face froze. He clearly hadn't expected that. Tried to laugh it off, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. I said it again, louder this time. No. Harrison got up, confused and embarrassed. Asked if we could talk about this somewhere private. I said no again. Said I was perfectly comfortable having this conversation right here, right now. Then I took out my phone, pulled up the TikTok video, turned the volume all the way up, pressed play. And finally, this is my girlfriend. Yes, I'm suffering. She's fat, ugly, and delusional. I'm only with her because her dad pays my bills. Look at this creature. His face went white, then red. He tried to grab my phone, but I moved it away. Told him not to touch me, ever again. It was chaos right after. People at the next table were whispering. The server hovered like she might need to intervene. Harrison's eyes were wild, darting from me to my phone to the door like he was calculating his escape. He hissed at me. You're making a scene. You're embarrassing yourself. Let's just talk outside. I said, no, I'm done pretending. I told him I knew everything. Every video, every message, every disgusting joke. And by the way, I'd already moved out, already taken back every single thing of mine he ever touched. I told him he'd lost his meal ticket, lost his easy ride. And the only thing he'd ever be remembered for was being a coward who mocked the one person who ever had his back. He stormed out, left me sitting there with the check and the ring box. The fallout started that night. He blew up my phone, calls, texts, then voice messages full of rage, then desperation, then threats. I blocked him. He tried Instagram, then Snapchat, then even emailed me at my old college address. I blocked everything. He tried leaving notes at my apartment, but I'd already told building security to keep him out. He called my dad's office pretending it was about work, but my dad had already told the receptionist to screen every call. Rebecca and Eliana came over, ready to celebrate, but all I wanted to do was shower and scrub the smell of him off my skin. I spent hours scrolling through every message, every post, every old video, deleting them one by one. I wanted to erase him, not just from my life, but from the last 3 years of my memory. Over the next week, things got messier. Harrison started showing up at places he knew I'd be. My favorite coffee shop, the grocery store by my office, even the gym. He'd hang around outside pretending to text, pretending to bump into me by accident. He'd try to talk, try to apologize, but it was always the same. I'm sorry you're upset. I'm sorry you misunderstood. I'm sorry you saw those things, but you know I love you. You know I need you. You know I can't do this without you. I never gave him the satisfaction of a response. I walked past him like he was invisible. One night, Rebecca and I were leaving a bar when we saw his car idling across the street. I looked at her, she looked at me, and without a word, I whipped out my phone and started filming. I walked straight up to his window and asked if he was lost. He looked startled, then mad, then tried to play it off like he was waiting for a friend. I told him to leave or I'd call the cops. He started to protest, but Rebecca was already on the phone. He peeled out, tires screeching, and that was the last time I saw him in person for a while. But the online stuff didn't stop. He started posting vague crap about fake people and betrayal and women who ruin good men. His friends jumped in, tried to DM me, tried to harass me, but I'd already locked down everything. I changed my number, wiped my socials. I wasn't scared. I was just done. My dad offered to get me a security guard for a while, but I refused. I told him I'd handled worse than a sad little man with a TikTok addiction. Meanwhile, I was working with my dad's lawyer. We sent Harrison an official notice about the lease violations, the pet snake, the subletting, the property damage. He had 30 days to vacate, but the maintenance checks kept coming, always with less warning, always at the worst times. He started calling the management company, yelling, demanding they stop harassing him, but all he got was polite apologies and reminders that he'd signed the lease. He tried to get Vincent, his secret roommate, to fight it for him, but Vincent didn't want to get involved. Suddenly, all those friends who laughed at his videos were nowhere to be found. The car was repossessed 3 weeks after the proposal fiasco. I didn't even know until Rebecca texted me a picture of Harrison standing on the curb, arms crossed, watching the tow truck haul it away. I kept that photo. Sometimes I look at it when I need to remember what losing looks like. Work was the last thing to go. My dad transferred Harrison to the graveyard shift at the warehouse, which meant long hours, no sunlight, and the worst jobs. He tried to complain, but nobody cared. Everyone knew who he was now, and nobody wanted to be seen talking to him. The only reason he kept the job at all was because my dad wanted to keep him close long enough to finish the plan. So while he was busy scrambling to keep his life together, I was building my case. I had screenshots, videos, emails, text logs, everything. I met with the lawyer every other day, compiling a file so thick it barely fit in a folder. Rebecca and Eliana helped me sort through everything, organizing by date, by platform, by level of cruelty. I saw things in those group chats I can never unsee. Jokes about my body, my voice, my family, even jokes about my mom who died when I was a kid. That one nearly broke me, but I refused to give him the satisfaction. My dad was relentless. Every time Harrison tried to get clever, like sneaking in through the building's back entrance or having friends call the company to complain about harassment, my dad shut it down. He had cameras installed in the halls, changed the locks, made sure the only people with access were the ones we trusted. Harrison tried to threaten a lawsuit, but the paperwork was airtight. All those years mocking my dad for being old-fashioned and paranoid suddenly didn't seem so funny. The apartment was the last domino. 2 days before his 30-day notice was up, I got a text from Eliana. He's moving out. I drove by, slow, just to see for myself. Harrison was dragging trash bags to the curb. Nobody was helping him. He kept looking over his shoulder like he thought someone was watching. I thought that would be it. But if you think a guy like Harrison just fades out, you don't know narcissists. 2 nights later, I came home and found the words, "gold-digging whale," written in Sharpie on my apartment door. I laughed. I took a picture, texted it to my dad and the property manager, and spent the next hour scrubbing it off. I never called the cops. I wanted him to know I knew it was him, and I wanted him to know it hadn't worked. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even mad. I was bored. He tried to escalate. Started messaging my dad, pretending to have evidence that I'd cheated on him, that I'd stolen from him, that I was the abusive one. My dad didn't even reply. The lawyer just added each message to the file. Harrison's last card was a letter, handwritten, left at my office front desk, begging for just one more conversation. The receptionist threw it out before I saw it. She knew the drill. Eliana and Rebecca were worried he'd try something worse. I told them I wasn't worried. I changed my routines, kept my phone on me, never walked home alone. I wasn't an idiot, but I also wasn't going to let fear run my life. About 3 weeks after his eviction, I got a call from the warehouse manager, my dad's friend, someone I'd known since I was a kid. He told me Harrison hadn't shown up for his last 4 shifts, hadn't called in, hadn't picked up his last check. They'd boxed up his locker and found it full of junk, empty energy drink cans, ripped up notes, some old photos of us from when we first started dating. The manager asked if I wanted them. I said throw it all out. Then Monday morning, I walked into my office and there he was, Harrison, sitting on the curb outside the building, holding a cardboard sign that said, "Please forgive me." He looked like hell. 3 days worth of stubble, eyes red, hands shaking. He didn't look up as I walked past, just kept staring at the ground, clutching his stupid sign like it was going to change anything. The receptionist caught my eye and mouthed, "He's been here every morning for 3 days. I shrugged. I told her if he comes inside, call security. She said, "Already did." I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and got to work. By lunchtime, he was gone, but the sign was still there, propped up against the trash can outside. I took a picture, texted it to Rebecca, Eliana, and my dad, just in case you wanted to laugh. That's all I have for now. I don't know what Harrison will try next, but I know that whatever it is, he'll never get forgiveness, never get my attention, never get another chance. Last update. Part of me wondered if seeing Harrison outside my office would be the end, like he'd finally hit rock bottom and disappear. But of course, that's not how guys like him work. If you've ever been used, humiliated, and then stalked by someone who's convinced you owe them forgiveness, you know the sign is never the end. It's just the start of a new game where the rules are even more pathetic. I kept waiting for him to escalate, but honestly, I think he'd already run out of moves. Still, I wasn't stupid. I kept my phone on me at all times, checked the lobby before I left, told the receptionist to keep an eye out. I wasn't giving him an inch, not after everything. The next week was this weird limbo. Harrison didn't show up again, at least not where I could see him, but I started hearing from people I hadn't talked to in years. Old college friends, distant cousins, even a girl from high school I barely remembered. Hey, is everything okay? Did something happen with you and Harrison? Someone saw him outside your work. I got a message from Vincent, who hadn't spoken to me since all of this started, and it was just this rambling wall of text about how Harrison was in a bad place. Maybe I could just meet with him for 5 minutes just so he can have closure. I blocked him without even reading the rest. I was done giving any of those people my time, energy, or empathy. If you're still friends with a man who built a brand out of shaming the woman who saved his ass, you're dead to me, period. The official eviction process wrapped up. The apartment was trashed. Holes in the walls, beer stains on the carpet, a smell like something had died in the vents. The property company charged Harrison for every penny. My dad laughed when he saw the invoice. Karma, he called it. I agreed, but I didn't really care about the money. I cared that he was finally, officially, out. One day at work, I got a call from the warehouse. The manager said Harrison had come in to pick up his last paycheck, tried to start an argument about being wrongfully terminated. The manager told him, "You were never terminated, you just stopped showing up." Harrison yelled, ranted about my dad, about how he was being set up, how he deserved better. The manager said he just handed him the check, watched him leave, and locked the door behind him. I thanked him for letting me know, asked if there was anything I needed to do, and he laughed. Just keep living your life, kid. By the time my birthday rolled around again, I realized I hadn't thought about Harrison in days. Not even when I passed our restaurant, not even when I saw his old car parked on the street. Well, not his anymore. I took a deep breath. I went to dinner with my friends and my dad, let them toast me and tell embarrassing stories, let myself laugh until my stomach hurt. I wore the red dress, the one Harrison always said was too much. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I actually liked. Every once in a while, I'll get a weird DM or a friend request from some rando, but it doesn't faze me. I send it to the lawyer, block, move on. I know Harrison's out there somewhere, probably still telling some sob story about how I ruined his life. I'm not worried. I know who I am, and I know what he is. I hope he remembers every single thing he did and knows that he lost the one person who ever truly gave a damn. I hope every time he sees my name, he remembers he's nothing but a footnote in my story. A cautionary tale, not a tragedy.